Welcome to another edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. I'm Tim O'Malley, joined today by John Bryce of Football Scoop and, of course, Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated. I believe Pete Sampson of The Athletic will be joining us shortly. Guys, since we last spoke on Thursday, two commitments, and wanted to start with Priester because with Javian Osborne and Jacoby Clapper, you did a pair of film reviews on these two. Not disparate film reviews, but I think you hit on some important points with Osborne and found a good player comparison I had not considered, if you recall who you put in your story.
With Osborne? Who did I
Yes,
compare him to?
with
Remind me.
Folston, Terry and Folston.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I had my mind on Clapper and a
on Clapper. Yeah,
comparison there as well. But Tarian Folston, and that was mainly, Tim, because of the jump cut that he
yep,
has. Remember
yeah.
the jump cut that Folston had coming out of high school? It was outstanding. I really like Javian Osborne. Not a guy that necessarily, well, he's not going to run away from people the way that Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price can, but boy, in short space in those first 30 yards, he is really a sensational back. Runs with abandon, man. I mean, he's
I
in a
was
hurry.
trying to pull out like Julius Jones, but not as fast. This is why I really appreciated Folston because he's not as
Yeah,
fast as those guys either.
yeah. I mean, there are just times where you see when he's really trying to go the distance, he doesn't quite have enough burst to do that. But he's a really good player. And as far as Clapper, I mean, I think that he's a solid football player. I want to see his senior film because to me there are too many plays where I think he's going to light somebody up and he doesn't quite do it. Look, I know that he has a list of or a few really, really good suitors in addition to Notre Dame. The rest of his offers were pretty mediocre. I just want to see his senior film. I didn't think that he jumped off the film for me like he did for a lot of other people, so I may be wrong. Certainly, I always admit that. So let's see what he does his senior year. But love Javian Osborne. I think Notre Dame has work to do at linebacker to add to the verbal commitment of Clapper.
Pete, did you have an Osborne review?
No, I mean, I think Folston is a good one though. Just like a more powerful Folston in the sense of like it wouldn't surprise me if he Osborne came in and played like right away at Notre Dame based on where the depth chart is. Does he have like the physical stuff that makes you think he could be a three and out? Probably not. But I think in terms of like durability and power and just sort of looking like a college running back, like that's the kind of back Notre Dame needs. This cycle based on where the running back depth chart is headed after this year with Love and Price, and who knows where the other four guys will be after
Yeah,
this
yeah.
year. You just don't know. So I think having somebody who has the physical ability to come in and help you right away was critical. And I think Osborne checks a lot of those boxes, even if he's not like, a top 50 level athlete.
Yeah, I think for me, looking at him, yeah, he just looks like a prototypical college running back, like a guy you can pencil in as being part of your backfield for the next several years, and he's going to be a dependable, very capable back. He's not Jeremiah Love who's going to run away from everybody on the field, but I think he's a guy, again, that is going to be a steady, stable part of your backfield stable.
It's hard to get the next Jeremiah Love because there aren't many of them. So getting the next Jadarian Price would be great as well. And I think we all liked Price coming in, but Price is better. Price became a better player when he got on campus, like the reports we heard. Remember, he was threatening to start as a true freshman or play alongside Diggs and Estime when that happened when he tore his Achilles. But yeah, looking for the next Jeremiah Love is like, look, you're looking for the next Jordan and you're not going to find him. So the next Jadarian Price would be awesome. Hey JB, welcome back. By the way, how are the travels in the college football circuit?
Yeah, they were good. A lot of informative stuff. I'm sure you and I will go over some more of it. And we just launched our first story today on Football Scoop. So since you asked, I'll shamelessly plug. The NCAA is talking about requiring certification for all player representatives in terms of college football players in the NIL marketplace. They're also continuing to look at just one single NCAA transfer portal window, and there's actually some growing momentum. I'm not remotely saying it's going to happen, grumpy people out there, but there's growing momentum for a single late spring portal that would occur at the end of April, 1st of May, and then therefore change the dynamics of the spring football calendar, which again, it's a free read and it's on Football Scoop right now.
We have three recruiting related questions, so I don't want to go too deep into this, but I did not agree with some of the, I think it was from Jamie at ISD and also Tom Loy of 24/7. I like that. I don't love the Coney direct comparison to Clapper. I think Jamie might have said it best. He said, "What could he be with Tavon Coney?" Because remember, Coney wasn't when he. I mean, he was never fast, but when he came out, he was a 3-star. I just felt like Coney had a ferocity to him that separated him from some
Yeah,
other guys in that
I think
realm.
and that part is a little hit and miss for me, and
Yeah.
that's why. Look, I mean, there are a lot of good things about him, and
Oh yeah. Yeah.
he's a take. I'm not saying he's not a take, although I did say it was a little bit perplexing Notre Dame taking him, so I admit to that. But let's see him develop. I think that he needs to develop a little bit more. His St. Xavier's been, like 18-9. They haven't been a powerhouse team. Let's see if he can lead his team to a little bit more. And if I could throw in one more thing about Osborne. Well, first of all, I mean, give Dealan McCullough credit for some credit for Jadarian Price's development.
Yes. Yeah.
But what another thing about Osborne is, he's doing his damage between the hashes. He wants to get upfield. He's not a guy that's always looking to, head toward the sideline and take it up the sideline. He is on a direct path to the end zone. So I think that's just another really great quality of his. He's not the most aesthetic runner because he's just running as damn hard as he possibly can. And I love that about him too.
I was going to say, compare him to Michael Floyd, but wasn't it the three of us? Or I think
Yeah.
Priester, Sampson, like Michael Floyd looks like he's violently galloping through a football field, not just like sprinting like most fast wide receivers. I don't usually highlight preseason too early top 25s and stuff like that, but actually CBS Sports 24/7 has a 6-writer poll that they've been updating all spring that goes along with whatever their way too early one was as the transfer portal evolved and people came and left in the spring session. They've had the final one now until the summer, and I pointed out because Notre Dame is number 7, which is viable. Miami is number 11, A&M is 23, and Boise and USC were receiving votes. I always wonder if people include schedules on this because I know Penn State's very high. If you look at Penn State's schedule, you guys probably haven't looked at it yet, but I can tell you this. They host Oregon and they're at Ohio State. And everything else is, if they play terribly at Iowa, they'll win 16-3. That's the schedule, and maybe that's why they're in the top 3 in these lists. But Notre Dame at 7 with their schedule. If schedules are included, I think that's a fine starting spot.
I don't think they take into account schedule, do they? I mean,
I don't
it's a
know.
rate,
Maybe not.
it's a rating of a
Yeah.
class, and I don't know. It would be good to know the answer to that. But yeah, Penn State, Notre Dame has a little bit more difficult route to the top 10 than Penn State does.
Surprised to see Boise on the outside looking in, considering bringing back the quarterback and a decent level of production, right, from a playoff team.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2 draft picks.
Yeah, I mean they lost obviously running Ashton Genty is
Yeah,
like
yeah, maybe that's
freak. I think their best defensive lineman was ended up being a 6th-round pick who people were like, man, that guy should have gone in the 4th round. So I wouldn't look at Boise and think like, oh man, they've got a lot of defensive line depth. That hurts a little bit more there. And it's like the entire program was built around the running back last year. That's not just you're not just replacing
Right.
production, that's your entire identity. So I would be surprised if Boise State kind of like kept motoring on this year.
JB, I'm sorry I cut you off there.
No, you're fine. Don't worry about it at all. I was going to agree on both accounts with Penn State and Boise. And with Boise, I would note their first 3 road games they open at South Florida. Alex Golish, it's a huge year for him atop the USF program. But you're talking about late August. Boise State is going to be fending off or dealing with some humidity that it's not accustomed to that time of year in Tampa. And then their second road trip is to Air Force, and then their third road trip is to Notre Dame. So just looking at Boise State's first 3 games away from home, each presents its own very daunting challenge, and it's a huge year for Troy Calhoun. Air Force really slumped last year after starting the 23 season like 8-0 or 9-0. And then since that time, I think they're about 3-12 or something along those lines. So huge years for different reasons for Golish at USF and Troy Calhoun at Air Force. And then you factor in the third road trip being to Notre Dame. So I think Penn State is where it is because of returning production, especially the big three on offense, and then a schedule that's a little more difficult. They now have to face UCLA with the Tennessee transfer quarterback, but I still am not sold on that UCLA regime. So some interesting things in that regard. But I'm with Pete. I think Boise State, even though I like their quarterback, I think Boise State probably ends up more like an 8-4 team this year.
If we ever do a preseason top 25, I insist the four of us and we'll add Drew Mentok into this include schedules because that is part of it. I mean,
it should say like
it has to say it really should.
Yeah, it should be part of the like we're voting and here's the criteria. We examine returning starters, key players lost, schedule, and other things. Coaching stability.
I'm going to wrap up segment one. Quick questions for Priester and probably JB, although you were traveling. A little bit of resurgence, unexpected, Tim Priester, for the Irish baseball team as of a month and a half ago.
Well, I mean, I want to give Sean Stifler a lot of credit because they were 4-14. They were dead in the water, 4-14 in the conference. And then they had a trip to Stanford and then Cal at home. And neither one of those two teams are having a good year. But, I mean, when you're 4-14, you can lose those games easily. And they ended up sweeping those two. And I've been saying for a couple of weeks, the real test will be Louisville. Not that Louisville is a College World Series contender like they have been in the past, but it's still Louisville, and Notre Dame's had an awful time trying to beat them through the years. And they won 2 out of 3 after losing the first game 3-2 with their best pitcher on the mound, Jack Riddell, who's just been sensational. So, I mean, I give them a lot of credit. Carson Tinney is just absurdly hot, 10 homers in 12 games. He's got a 1,300 OPS. He's just unstoppable right now. And so, Riddell and Fox at the top of that rotation, they could do a little bit of damage in the ACC tournament after they finish their regular season at Miami here in a couple of weeks with final exams this week. But tons of credit for Stifler because you could lose a team real easily under those circumstances. Yeah. And they do have some young talent that has really stepped forward, led by Tinney and Rustevich and Waters and some other guys, including a local guy, Jace Lee from South Bend St. Joe. Plug for
credit, huge credit for taking the series from Louisville, because that's a team that's been consistently ranked in the top 20 through most of this year, and a team that many project to be an at-large bid recipient into the NCAA tournament at the end of this month. So a lot of credit there. I know I've talked about how much Notre Dame baseball has dropped off under Stifler compared to where Link left it. But I would be remiss if I didn't point out that however far Notre Dame has dropped, Stanford is at a whole different level of the Marianas Trench for how far that baseball program has fallen, considered the heritage that it has.
Priester, the plug for St. Joe, too, on the show. That's
biggest upset of the pod right there.
That's the biggest upset of the podcast.
For everybody that doesn't know, that is an absolute rival for us Marion Knights.
I'm glad you led into that. It was a segue I set up for because Pete Sampson was on hand for the other rivalry, the biggest sporting event of the weekend. Pete, thanks for showing up yesterday at 7 p.m. for the rescheduled game.
Oh, flag football. It's a good time.
Looking to upgrade your wardrobe? Founded by Notre Dame alum Go Wang, you've seen ESQ's custom clothing on the player walk and all of your favorite players and coaches. With more than a decade of making the best bespoke clothing available, ESQ will help you look and feel your best. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt, or bomber jacket, or that perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out esqclothing.com and book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention Irish Illustrated and get 10% off your entire purchase. That's esqclothing.com. We'll be back with segment 2, Burning Up the Boards.
Segment 2, Burning Up the Boards. We start with a couple of questions paired together. Cam S. Pumpkins asked, the reports and vibes from spring camp were very positive, leading to high expectations, but high expectations leads to disappointment. Where should the right expectation be for the 2025 team? And then Eric Simeon asks, I don't think that's the real Eric Simeon. To be blunt, some of you seem far higher on Notre Dame this May than usual. What's up with that?
I don't
I
know if
like the
this
word.
Cam S. Pumpkins is related to David S. Pumpkins.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, David Pumpkins. Tom Hanks in the house.
Yes. Um, I, I feel like my expectations for this season are unchanged. In the sense that, like, I feel like this is a college football playoff team, but probably one that opens on the road if they make it.
I felt that Pete Sampson went from not sure to college football playoff team. That was one of the reasons I included this question from beginning of spring
Could
to end.
could be like it's weird because I feel like defensive tackle I'm much more confident in than I was when spring started. Quarterback I'm like more intrigued by.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Like, but I don't know if like the win-loss record is changed by that position, if that makes any sense.
I would say maybe exiting spring that I believe because of the quarterback situation that maybe this team's ceiling is a little higher than what I might have initially felt. I certainly feel much better about the defensive tackle position, and we were already, or certainly I was already very high on the linebacker position, and if possible, I'm even higher on that group. I really think that Notre Dame's linebackers I've not studied it enough, but my first blush, especially knowing what some other places lost, Georgia and Ohio State particularly, leads me to believe I think Notre Dame will have the best linebacking core in the country this year. And then the more I talk to people as we get removed from spring camp, and the more you hear about how well CJ Carr, for example, performed over the balance of camp, I'm believing more in the ceiling of this team. And I think um, we don't have to wait long to know a hell of a lot about the
Yeah.
Notre Dame football program. And if Notre Dame is 2-0 on September 13th, I think is the date. If Notre Dame's 2-0 on September 13th, this should be a top 3 team in the country.
Oh yeah, at that point, I would agree.
Oh yeah.
That would be a huge.
And then if it's 2-0 at that point, you're looking at a schedule where you expect it to be favored every single game the rest of the way. And so I have gone from thinking this is maybe a quote unquote at large CFP team, and I know they have to be at large every year, whatever. But gone from thinking this could be an at large CFP team to thinking this team could host again in the playoffs if it stays healthy and continues developing the quarterback position like it continues to be. And I continue to hear more about the intangible leadership qualities of CJ Carr.
Tim, go ahead.
I was going to say, Priester, you seem higher on them at this point in the offseason than at most off seasons when they have good teams. Like the 18 team had a very good.
Yeah,
We knew 18 and 20 were very good. I mean,
well,
20 was weird, but
the second question as to why are we higher? Because we have eyes and we go out and watch and we talk to players and interview coaches and then watch scrimmages and talk about it and we see the depth and what I mean, we're high on them because they still have a ton of talent after going to the national championship game last year. They lost leadership, but that will emerge. We'll see exactly who emerges as the leaders. I think Drake Bowen certainly will be one of those guys on defense. And, it's like we don't just like decide, okay, this year we're going to be high on them or this one, this year we're not going to be. It's just based upon what we see. And I think that there's a boatload of talent. I think the depth is at a level that we haven't seen on a consistent basis since Lou Holtz. I mean, I don't really think that that's a stretch to say that, even though I know it's a long period of time that has gone by, but I just it's what we see. And I think all of us kind of generally agree that I mean, this should be a 10-2 team at the worst. And I only say 2 losses because the first two, you have to open at Miami and then play Texas A&M. But if they are JB, if they are 2-0, the sky's the limit. And Pete, when you say, on the road for the playoffs, I assume that you're saying a 10-2 team, and I can understand that because the first 2 games you could easily lose one of them, and then you've got 10 left, and I maybe we grew a little accustomed to just keep winning games after losing early last year, but that's difficult to do over the long haul every single season.
Since you brought up Lou Holtz, I'm going to quickly note this headline from the Babylon Bee because it was just shared to me by an Irish Illustrated subscriber, and that is that Bill Belichick's girlfriend has now left him for Lou Holtz. So just some levity amidst this very serious podcast.
From, from Wreckers 33 Hot, there has been a notable upswing in recruiting results these last few months. How much of this is related to Indy coming off a national championship appearance compared to something more systematic and potentially sustainable tied to Mike Martin and others joining the staff?
Go ahead, guys.
So I asked this question to somebody on campus who would know the answer, and he said 100%. There are two things. One, they just played for the national championship, and two, Marcus Freeman. Like all the other stuff, like matters. Don't get me wrong, but
Oh,
like
yes, of course. Yeah.
it is national title game and a head coach who drives the recruiting bus. That's really important. They haven't always had that. You know who I'm talking about, and now they do. So that's what's making the difference right now.
Willingham did not drive the recruiting bus. You're right.
No. Golf
Yeah.
cart maybe.
Yeah, definitely huge component. Marcus Freeman have heard similar, and not just Marcus's passion for recruiting, but his attention to detail in recruiting, the number of meetings that they have to go over the vision for recruiting with Mike Martin, with Carter Allman. I do think Carter, his stability in that department has been very key because he knows what's worked for them in recent years under the previous group. He knows what can continue to work. He knows where Marcus is best. He's, I think, transitioned seamlessly with Mike Martin. And then Mike Martin has the NFL background to say, okay, these guys fit us and they fit the goal of trying to put players in the NFL. So I think it's all of those things. But we said in January and February that the bump from playing in the national title game would come later on. And this is the time for that. And I think you'll continue to see it even with some of the guys they're going to be able to get on campus in June.
Yeah, it's never one thing, as we say all the time. And I think the two things that Pete brought up to begin with, the fact that that they were coming off a national championship game, and Marcus Freeman he's the Pied Piper of this thing. I think Mike Martin did a nice job. When Chad Bowden left, it could be very unstable, and Mike Martin came in and I think stabilized that pretty quickly. And then they've made inroads in North Carolina. That's how they got two really top-notch defensive ends. Jaywan Sider resonates with Javian Osborne. That's how they got him. So they got a lot of really good things going for him right now. But I think, first and foremost, it's Marcus Freeman. But it would, they had Marcus Freeman last year and the year before. It's that championship beating, you know, beating Georgia and Penn State to get to the national championship game it'd become difficult for Notre Dame fans to like even expect something like that happening because they'd
Yes.
gone 3 decades without a major college bowl and they went two within a week of each other. So I think it all adds up, and it starts with Freeman and then the strong performance in 2024.
I think the difference between even beating Penn State and just being or losing, let's say you lose to Penn State and you lost in the semifinal, and getting the championship game and having that 10-day college football exposure is massive. I know Georgia was a bigger win than Penn State for like Notre Dame's fan base and beating the SEC and all that, but that Penn State game was a fantastic all-time college football game when you consider the stage that they played it on and how it ended. It's huge. Notre Dame was able to pull that off and play for the championship. You could do that, and if Marcus Freeman was to do it, the recruiting wouldn't be that much better. But I feel like getting to the national championship game in our world, the way people follow playoff, the incredible difference than just losing in the semifinals. And it probably shouldn't be that way. You could lose on a field goal to Penn State; it would have been the same level of a football team. But I think it was giant advantage there, and it helped Marcus, but it helped the right guy too.
We
From
have a
not J to Fell one, which ND offense from the past would you say the 2025 ND offense will resemble most? Take into account personnel, experience, etc. I have one.
I I struggled with this one.
I've
Yeah.
got one, but you guys jump in.
Well, my scope is very limited. I would say my gut reaction is maybe along the lines of 2020, just in terms of like that was Kyron Williams. This is Jeremiah Love. There's more in the backfield this year than in 20. but Ian Book was really efficient operating the offense that year. I think CJ Carr maybe will, as it was put to me, he's going to throw a few more interceptions than what Notre Dame fans have grown accustomed to the last couple of years, but he's going to have a lot more touchdowns than what Notre Dame fans have grown accustomed to the last couple of years. You've got some really, really nice pieces on the offensive line, even though they're still young. There's still so much experience up there. Not, Eli Raridon, can he have that breakout year that we all believe or seem to all believe that he has the ability to have? But again, my scope is much more limited compared to you experts. But when I saw this, that was the first impulse reaction.
I want to hear what O'Malley say. 'Cause I have struggled with this because there are so many examples where the quarterback was a run threat,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
like that's not. It's kind of hard to like point to one of those teams as a comparable to this team.
My example is kind of other than the quarterback. Mine is 18 because it's first of all, it's three receivers and one tight end, not by choice, but because you have Alize Mack and you have Eli Raridon and you have a very young Cole Kmet coming off an injury as your backup tight end who had two catches. It's a three wide receiver set for the first time since 18. Jeremiah Love is a lot better than Dexter Williams, okay? But Dexter Williams was an explosive running back for 9 games until they ran into Clemson, in which case nobody's an explosive running back. He was a huge runner in that offense. Very good offensive line. They were Joe Moore Award finalists. This offensive line is better, like JB's 2020 line. That's an offensive. 18 was an Joe Moore Award finalist and shouldn't have been. 20 was a Joe Moore Award finalist and should have been. And then the experience on defense. It's just so much deeper now for Notre Dame, but that's the best I could come up with for anything. I mean, you can't go with the Weiss era because they were a terrible offensive line throwing the ball around all the time. I have to go. I have to go with 18.
All right, I looked at from a personnel standpoint. Okay, young starting quarterback, first time starting quarterback, two top-notch running backs, two speedy wide receivers. I don't know that the Notre Dame's not this year. Fields, I don't know that he's speedy, but Faison is. I was just looking at 2015 because Kaiser was a first-time starter. Carr will be a first-time starter. He's not going to run like Kaiser, but you had the 1-2 punch of running back, Procise and Adams. You've got that 1-2 punch with Love and Price. Fuller, speed guy. Well, I guess Chris Brown, the speed guy with Faison. It's not an exact comparison. And then you go, deeper into the receiving core. Carlisle and Hunter were in that. I guess Notre Dame goes 4 deep. Tight end, there should be a greater presence of tight end than there was with Alize Jones / Mack in 2015.
Yeah, it was supposed to be Smythe. He got hurt and saved Notre
Right,
Dame's season.
right. So that's just who I thought of. And it started with, okay, young quarterback, what's he going to do? Hasn't played before. But Kaiser was a much more significant runner than Carr will be.
Yeah, hopefully this doesn't mean the starter gets hurt in second game of the year.
And I did mention when I said Smythe saved Notre Dame's season, Brian Kelly told him that, right, Pete? Durham Smythe limping off the field with, what, 2 injuries, right, at that point? Shoulder and knee?
It's just dragging himself
That
off.
led to Deshaun Kaiser's winning touchdown to Will Fuller. Otherwise, the clock, there's the runoff. He got off the field for it, and Brian Kelly thanked him for not saving the season, I'm assuming, but saving the game. We have a two-parter, Shibe 43, and this is portal related. We allow one. The lack of spring transfers was surprising, but does that mean O'Malley's over-under bet is dead yet? Who would be technically able to transfer as a grad transfer and may wait until more clarity after summer workouts to their positions at ND or going to another school? And then Taddy95 says, how many players graduate this spring and are any projected grad transfers leaving?
Go ahead, guys.
I don't know the number of grad transfer eligible players off the top of my head, but I know there's some confusion. And so the portal window closing on April 25th has nothing to do with grad transfers. You can still grad transfer out this month, next month, whatever. I think you have a July deadline to declare that you're grad transferring out. I don't think you can wait all the way until August. I need to double check on that. I will try to ask an NCAA compliance director before our podcast on Thursday. But again, the time is open right now for grad transfers. You still can grad transfer out over the next 6, 8, 12 weeks.
These guys enrolled early that are current seniors. off the top of my head. So they are potential grad transfers, right? If you didn't enroll early, I'm not guessing you're a grad transfer going into your senior year. So Jadarian Price enrolled early. We just talked about that. Jabron Payne enrolled early. Um, Billy Schroth enrolled early. That would be a pretty big surprise. Josh Burnham enrolled early. Tui Halamaka enrolled early. And then the guys that are actual graduates that did not just transfer into the program, we won't use those, of course, are Chance Tucker, Rubio, and Onye, and Botello, and Bauman. A lot of guys would be very surprising there. I can't imagine there's a junior that went the crazy route of 18 credits to try to get out of here early or anything like that. So I think that is the list of guys that could get out of here early. Wagner didn't enroll early, right? I don't know why. I have no picture of him interviewing him in a spring ever.
Don't think he did because I think he was a basketball guy.
Okay. Yeah, because I do not remember interviewing him in a spring. So
Yeah.
But I mean, maybe Botello, if he sees that the
yeah, no,
the
yeah.
injured,
If you have to pull one, like if that's our job to pull one here, I mean,
right?
yeah, I think Bauman would have done it already. He's obviously
Yeah,
sticking it out. Well,
yeah.
Payne is a maybe.
Payne, yeah,
Yeah,
Payne would definitely be one. And I wrote him down too. Elamaka. I mean, I don't think that he's inclined to do that. But if Traore is up and running and
yeah.
ready to be unleashed from day one at the start of the season, maybe that impacts
I think Tui
somebody like.
Halamaka, Tim. I think on your Tui Halamaka, he had his chance last year.
Well,
I
I
mean, in
agree, and
September, and
I
he
mean
didn't do it. So
he
yeah,
could be a captain,
yeah,
So
that's
I
true.
don't, yeah. So no, I'm not anticipating it, but we had heard some rumblings about maybe Botello in the spring, and that time came and went. So I don't know.
Yeah, Emil Wagner did not enroll until
Okay,
June 1st, 2022.
I have no memory of it. So there we go. Doesn't always work out that way.
Question from Pink Robots. You are often asked for player comps. Who's your coaching comp for Marcus Freeman?
This is a good one. I saved this for when it came in late Thursday, and I had figured to have us four on here to give it a shot. That's a tough one, man.
Hmm.
So third year, it's kind of funny. He has two major bowl wins happen at the same time. Third year, two major bowl wins doesn't happen very often unless you're a new coach. It's so heavy. I mean, obviously built upon not a certainly defensive side of the ball, overall leadership more than like earning his stripes as a longtime coordinator and young and recruiting. And I mean, he's clearly like one of the guys that's cut from the head coaching cloth, not a good coordinator. Like, I wonder if Brett Venables can become a good coach. Does that make sense? Like, there's guys that know a lot when they coordinate, and I think Marcus was always kind of headed for the head coaching vein.
I might make a bit of an unorthodox comp here and Bob Stoops.
Oh, that was mine.
Yeah, get some, Pete. Um,
It's not a competition.
Yeah,
oh,
it is now.
You're gonna
always a
it's a competition,
It's always
TP.
a hill to die on.
Everything is a competition.
Those are
forgot.
words
I
are said on my
forgot.
house on a
Buddy,
daily basis.
work-
Everything
I
is
thought you were
work
challenging
on-
everything, Tim Priester.
I
Come on, it's
forgot,
always a
JB.
competition.
Holy cow.
I love it. Worked under some big time head coaches and has seen good, believes in recruiting, strong leader of men, defensive minded. That was my first one. I would also have a second one that will drive a certain subsect of the board nuts
Uh-oh.
because they think I talk about him too much. But a Steve Sarkisian in terms of like charisma, the way he approaches recruiting, the things he does. But yeah, Bob Stoops was my initial one, so I'll just sit back and continue dunking on Pete while you all.
I think it's
I think Stoops, the background that he had, the early success, defensive minded from Ohio, Midwest vibes. So yeah, Stoops is. I think there's a lot of Stoops, and like, look, if that is the run that Notre Dame is on, there's a lot of winning to be done over the next 20 years.
that'll work. Yeah, I looked at from the other way around, like who's coming up that's going to be like Marcus Freeman.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay.
I don't think there's a lot of comparisons there. But what Kenny Dillingham has done at Arizona State, a lot, geez, 5 years younger than Marcus Freeman. I didn't look at it from that perspective. I looked at it the other way around. And for Dillingham to make the playoffs, the first 12-team playoff, first time through, that was pretty impressive because nobody was predicting that
No, they were not on
last
the
year
list.
for Arizona State.
From T Row 1989, directed for JB. Is there a sense on staffs around the country that the Irish are more of a threat in recruiting battles that they typically lost in the past?
Absolutely. I've just come from the DFO meetings in Dallas, and you had more than 300 or right at 300 football ops people from every single level of college football, as well as some high school football ops directors and a couple of pro people who stopped by. And the conversation continues to be, man, Notre Dame's got it rolling. I told you in the past, I'll reiterate again. Like I talk regularly with some SEC GMs who are longtime friends. They pay more attention to Notre Dame now on the recruiting trail than they have at any point in this modern era of college football personnel being at the football personnel directors being so much at the forefront. I'm talking about a decade plus. More SEC teams are paying attention to Notre Dame recruiting than at any point that I'm aware of in sort of this modern era of college football. Let's say the CFP era of college football. It's LSU, it's Auburn, it's Tennessee, it's Georgia, it's Texas A&M, it's Ohio State people. I recognize that's not SEC. I'm just telling you what I hear out there and what I heard literally last week at Dallas Cowboys headquarters in Frisco is how much more people are paying attention to Notre Dame.
It's not SEC because it's from the conference that wins national titles recently, the Big Ten.
Yeah.
So I want to point that out for the SEC
You know,
fans.
when in a month span you get verbal commitments from Ebenezer Iwatade, Rodney Dunham, Javian Osborne, obviously, obviously things have changed on the recruiting trail. Now you got to hold on to them, because otherwise you get back into the same situation you were before. But I don't think anybody's anticipating that. It's been a hell of a month for Notre Dame football recruiting.
That's a great point, TP. One quick thing I wanted to add, and we've seen it. And again, I will always defer to you guys. I love Notre Dame continuing to be able to go into Texas. Notre Dame's going to continue to recruit Atlanta. You've noted, TP, and others have noted how much more active they are in North Carolina, particularly the Charlotte area. And then they're being really smart in Cincinnati right now, whether it's getting a Devontae Smith out of the portal or the Clapper kid or some of the other things that they're doing. Cincinnati is in an incredibly vulnerable position right now because there's so much flux around the Bearcats program, and Ohio State maintains a large presence in there, but because of Marcus Freeman's ties to the area and Mike Mickens' ties to the area and Gino and all those guys, I like what Notre Dame is strategically doing in some different spots.
True or false question from Kevin O'Neill. Notre Dame doesn't recruit a grad transfer for the nickel position in 2026.
I'm going to say false, but it's the first time you can ask this question since you're allowed to recruit grad transfers.
Yeah, I'd say false because I'm not sure who the other nickel would be other than Carson Hobbs, and I'd like to have more than one.
Yeah. Challenge everything, recruit it. It's also a
Yep.
rugged position now that plays a little
Yeah,
linebacker,
they do like
Mark Zachary, yeah.
Mark Zachary the fourth at that position as well. So we'll get a little better idea once August practice begins.
Needs so much weight, it seems like, for next
Yeah.
year. Like that's
Yeah. Hobbs, though, I mean, T.O. and I are really, really high on Carson Hobbs.
And I will point out, because I started looking quickly at the roster to answer this, but Hobbs comes immediately to mind. Tay Johnson dabbled, but he doesn't do it anymore from the last time we talked to Tay Johnson.
Yeah.
So
Minnick has played there. He had a great
you're
blue gold
recruiting a
game. I
grad
don't
transfer
know.
if you need Ben Minnick to be your starting nickel
Yeah.
next year, though. Like
Yeah.
that's the
Oh, yeah.
yeah. I say false because a lot of things can happen. That's
Yeah.
going back to my over-unders.
Yeah.
I
I would put a higher percentage on false, but but like you said, we wouldn't, this question wouldn't have been, Kevin O'Neill would not have asked this question the last couple of years. Yeah.
my favorite new name, Ash, Cash, or Grass. Al Golden's defense was outstanding on third down last season, even without a pure pass rusher. They were not, however, in 2022, even with a pure pass rusher, Isaiah Foskey. What do you know about Ash's third down successes or even his approach? Is there anything we should take from Ohio State or Rutgers, or he says elsewhere, that would include Texas, I think? Or what do you expect to carry over from 2025?
I mean, it's an interesting way to phrase the question because I remember Golden TP, I think, asked him a couple times about this, just like, why are you better on third down? He's like, because we had too much damn inventory in the
Yeah.
playbook. So I could see Ash having a similar, I don't, air quotes around issue with that. Figuring out what works, what doesn't, but needing games to sort of stress test that. But in terms of like schematically, is he going to play zone? Is it going to be like BVG where you're zone dropping the nose guard? I don't know. I think we gotta see that, and I don't think looking at what Chris Ash did at Ohio State or Texas or Rutgers has a whole lot to do with what he's going to do at Notre Dame.
It'd be hard to look at his results at Rutgers, which is a lot more. It just feels a lot more recent than. I mean, Ohio State. I looked in Ohio. One year he finished 12th or 15th. Was not the year they won the national. It was the year they won the national title. 12th or 15th in third down defense. The other one was like 30, but that's what Al Golden did too. Al Golden was 30th and 12th. Actually, Texas for the run in 2020 that didn't go all that well for Ash. They were a good third down team. Um, I bet you hopefully that was a great point by Pete and that TP asked the question. I hope he doesn't try to enhance that too much when Al Golden says the inventory was too high for our guys on third down, because I do think that's where the mad scientist can come out right on third down. And you have to have veterans that can figure out what the heck you're talking about sometimes when you're tweaking everything on third down exotics.
I think he'll be extremely aggressive along the lines of what Al Golden was. All Ash has to do is turn the film on and see what he can do with this personnel, how he can be aggressive with them. And secondly, the Ash's history is to be aggressive up front. So, I mean, from that standpoint, when you want to get after the quarterback, Al Golden got after the quarterback. I think Chris Ash will dial up a lot of the same things that were successful under Al Golden.
And I would note that when Chris Ash was helping run that Ohio State defense the year they won the title and were top 15 or whatever in third down conversion defense, he didn't have the NFL experience that he has now. So I would expect him to bring some additional NFL elements to the Notre Dame defense the same way that Al Golden did. So I can tell you that as they exited camp, Chris Ash let it be known that he feels like he's got a lot of playmakers on this defense.
We think they will have the pass rushers this year with Traore Botello coming back. But even if they don't, there is one other constant for aggressive defenses in the NFL and in college football. When you have Christian Gray, Leonard Moore covering on the outside, you can be a lot more aggressive than you can if you don't have those two covering the
No,
outside.
no doubt. But he will use a little bit more zone. And so, that you,
I could use Xavier Watts back out there too. That's what I like to bring up every once in a while when we talk about how good they're going to be.
And you can also, Jalen Sneed is becoming a weapon, with his aggression at the line of scrimmage, especially on third down. And so you tap into him as well. We're going to wrap up with a question from M. Garcia 12 in light of the public confrontation between Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo at the WNBA preseason game at Notre Dame last week. That's now been making the rounds on social media. What are some of the most public spats or confrontations between Notre Dame football teammates in your time covering the beat?
I mean, I thought of a few right away, which is why I pulled the question. First of all, that was really weird to do that for 20-year-olds that know they're on camera all the time. Like,
yeah,
you should know better. You're on camera all the time.
Forever. Credit to the gentleman,
the
security that was there that encouraged them to get down the tunnel and discuss it out of the view of the cameras.
Publicly, I mean, Clausen and my current neighbor had a pretty much of a public spat between a fist and an eye. That was a pretty big deal in 2009 Thanksgiving week, or post Connecticut game, right? Not publicly, but it's fun to bring up. Aaron Lynch and Tate Nichols got into a serious practice brawl with a body slamming of a 320-pound offensive tackle. And I was thinking, Priester, of especially Pete will remember one of them. After Notre Dame lost to Navy, this is not a fight, but it's public spat when Ian Williams said, why did they have trouble stopping Navy in that upset loss? The scheme was what he blamed. And Priester and John Bryce is going to love this one. 1991, Miracle in South Bend. They asked Tony Brooks what went wrong for the Tennessee comeback, and he goes, "We were running the ball all over them. I guess the coaches saw something we didn't because we stopped."
Yeah. I had a confrontation with Tony Brooks in the locker room back when we could go into the locker room.
Did you?
Well, I mean, he had a confrontation with me. Let's put it
Yeah,
that
yeah,
way.
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I asked him a question about because he had fumbled.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He fumbled like for the fifth time in 6 games, and
Oh,
I
Lou
asked him,
Lou Samoji told me about this. Yes, go ahead.
yeah, like
Yeah.
for like 5 times in 6 games, and Lou Holtz was notorious for benching guys
Yeah.
that fumbled frequently. And I asked him how the hell he was able to. I didn't say it that way,
Yeah.
but how in the world?
If so,
I
maybe you
mean,
did start the
I didn't. No, I
conversation.
didn't. I did not. I tried to be very respectful about it, but I asked about how do you stay on the field in a Lou Holtz offense when you fumbled 5 times in 6 games? And he made it clear that he not only did not want to talk to me, but he wanted me to leave the locker room at that point. So I did.
Hmm.
At least I left sitting by him and asking him
Yeah.
questions.
Pete, you got some? The Ian Williams one had to be awkward, right? When that was, I wasn't covering the team for that.
Yeah, I mean, because that was also like Diaco the next week was like, yeah, if we didn't,
Oh,
that
yeah,
was the
was
no plan B week. After yeah. Alexander Teach versus everyone's delicate sensibilities
good.
was a
Ruined Notre
blowout.
Dame football for a month.
Yeah, it's like I mean the Clausen one with the face shield. They went to
Oh,
Stanford the next week. The black eye was weird, whatever that was or wasn't. But yeah, I can't imagine anything at the level of Miles and Hidalgo at the
no.
arena in public view. Like, what are you doing?
I mean the Fiesta Bowl Priester '95, when they didn't belong there, the 6-4-1 team that got worked by Colorado, they had a fight on the bus, like in the parking lot, that spilled into the.
Yeah, I don't
But
have a
that's
real
still your.
yeah,
There's no cameras there. That's why no one knows this
yeah,
story. Yeah.
yeah, I don't have a real good recollection of that. I mean the Miles Hidalgo thing, it was a little bit heated. It could have been a lot
Yeah,
worse.
Aaron Lynch body slamming an offensive lineman is
Yeah,
different heating.
Yeah, Tate Nichols in particular is a large
Yes.
human being.
yeah.
Yes, he
Well,
was.
but nobody, I mean, to put the finer point on it, nobody believed the story about those two getting along. They
No.
tried I mean they tried to promote that idea in the aftermath of Miles leaving Notre Dame, but anybody around the program knew that that wasn't true, that there was some animosity. And look, I mean, those are two people that have to have the basketball in their hands, and the rules say you can only have one out there, basketball that is.
JB, any public spats from your days of
No, I
Big
mean,
Orange?
Albert Hainsworth and Will Offenhusel, offensive lineman Will and defensive tackle Hainsworth.
Albert Hainsworth is not one to be minced with, if you recall
Correct.
his
No.
NFL career.
Ooh,
Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. The foundation of that was born on Rocky Top. So anyone who saw some of those NFL incidents never was surprised. I'll put it that way. So yeah, there were quite a few practice ejections. There's some people who contend that Albert Hainsworth spent more time ejected from practice than in practice. So anyway, that's probably the most notable. They did. There
I
was,
think I think the most ejected player from practice in my time was probably Zorich.
I sense a theme
And
here with Albert Hainsworth and Zorich are pretty good players getting ejected from practice all the time in the middle of the defense. That's fine. Little different days though, right? For that.
yeah, and more practice access. We don't know now. We don't know who gets
right,
ejected very often now because we
right.
don't see very much at all. So there's, certainly there's been some fighting in recent years, some fighting in last camp, but
I think Zorich wore that like a badge too.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I think
I
it was a
think yeah,
point.
I think Drew White would tell you about some fighting
Yep.
too many years ago.
That's the one
Yeah,
that comes
They
to
no, I'm
mind.
practice.
sure. That's the unfortunate one, but
It's part of the
Drew,
game, man. It's part
Drew
of the
White, friend
game.
of the show too. He might tell us sometime. You never know. It's down the road. With that, it's a cliffhanger for everybody else. That is it for this edition of Irish Illustrated Insider. We'll be back on Thursday, May 8th. For Pete Sampson, The Athletic, John Bryce of Football Scoop, and Tim Priester of Irish Illustrated, I am Tim O'Malley. Thanks for joining us.